In the evolution of Mexico's modern drug war,
90% of the drugs coming here are from Mexico.
Certain moments did not merely escalate violence.
Entenderemos las causas que originan la inseguridad y la violencia.
They transformed its structure. The Rise of Los Zetas was one of those moments. Their emergence did not simply introduce another cartel into an already contested landscape.
The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country.
It marked a structural shift, the point at which organized crime adopted the discipline, hierarchy, and operational doctrine of the state itself. The consequences would extend far beyond their own lifespan.
The drug cartels are waging war in America.
The origins of Los Zetas lie inside the Mexican Army's Grupo Aeromóvil de Fuerzas Especiales, or GAEF. Formed to combat insurgent threats and later deployed against powerful trafficking organizations, GAEF represented one of the most sophisticated military units in the country. Its members were trained in counterinsurgency tactics, intelligence gathering, coordinated assault formations, and advanced weapons handling. Some received specialized training through international counter-narcotics cooperation programs. They were designed to confront organized crime. By the mid-1990s, however, organized crime had evolved faster than the state's containment strategies. The Gulf Cartel, under the leadership of Osiel Cárdenas controlled key trafficking corridors along the northeastern border. Competition was intensifying. Rival groups were consolidating. Government operations were expanding. Maintaining territorial dominance required more than loyal gunmen. It required coordination. Cárdenas understood that traditional enforcement crews reacted to threats. He wanted a force that anticipated them. Through intermediaries, elite soldiers were approached with offers of significantly higher compensation and operational authority. Around 1997, several members of GAEF deserted and entered the orbit of the Gulf Cartel. Among the earliest and most influential was Arturo Guzmán de Sena, a former lieutenant who would recruit additional defectors. The group adopted the name Los Zetas. Derived from a military radio code used to designate senior officers. The symbolism was intentional. Command, structure, authority. They were no longer soldiers of the state. They became soldiers of a cartel. Initially, Los Zetas functioned as the enforcement arm of the Gulf Cartel. They protected leadership, eliminated rivals, secured routes, and imposed order in contested areas. What distinguished them was not merely weaponry, but method. They conducted reconnaissance before engagements. They established perimeter control. They moved in coordinated units. They utilized disciplined communication. Violence was no longer impulsive. It was tactical. The introduction of military doctrine into cartel operations created measurable advantages. The Gulf Cartel consolidated power across Tamaulipas and neighboring regions. Rival groups faced an adversary capable of strategic planning rather than reactive retaliation. Law enforcement encountered opponents trained in counter-surveillance and maneuver warfare. Organized crime had adopted state methodology. In 2003, Osiel Cárdenas was arrested. And later extradited to the United States. Conventional logic suggested that Los Zetas, dependent on Gulf leadership, would weaken. Instead, they expanded. Freed from exclusive allegiance, they transitioned from enforcers to independent power brokers. Their internal hierarchy allowed replication of authority across multiple territories. Commanders were installed regionally. They institutionalized themselves. Unlike traditional cartels primarily reliant on narcotics trafficking, Los Zetas diversified aggressively. Kidnapping, extortion, fuel theft from state-owned pipelines, human smuggling, and territorial taxation became core revenue streams. It became an economic zone. Municipalities under their influence were subject to structured extraction. Businesses paid for protection. Migrant routes were regulated through coercion. Entire regions became integrated into a paramilitary-style governance model. Tensions between Los Zetas and the Gulf Cartel erupted into open warfare. Urban firefights spread across northeastern Mexico. Highways were blocked. Convoys clashed in city centers. Infrastructure became contested terrain. The former enforcement wing had become a rival sovereign force. The conflict was not discreet, it was visible. In August 2010, authorities discovered the bodies of 72 migrants in a ranch near San Fernando, Tamaulipas. The victims had been traveling north. The killings were not random. They were enforcement. The message was unambiguous. Territory would be regulated through fear. The following year, mass graves were uncovered in the same region. San Fernando became more than a crime scene. It became a symbol of what militarized organized crime looked like when territorial authority extended to civilians. The violence was strategic, but its human cost was indiscriminate. The state's absence became visible in its own territory. The Mexican government responded with intensified military deployments and a strategy centered on leadership removal. In 2012, Heriberto Lascano, a prominent Zeta leader, was killed in a confrontation with Mexican Marines. Leadership transitioned to Miguel Ángel Treviño Morales, known as Z40. He was captured in 2013. His successor, Omar Treviño Morales, was arrested in 2015. Within 3 years, the upper command was dismantled. Leadership decapitation weakened structure while amplifying volatility. By the late 2000s, Los Zetas no longer functioned as a unified national force. Their territorial dominance diminished. Rival organizations absorbed former strongholds, yet the structural innovations endured. After Los Zetas, paramilitary organization, diversified revenue streams, and overt territorial governance became normalized across criminal networks. The militarization of organized crime accelerated. The boundary between cartel and insurgent-style organization blurred. Los Zetas did not create Mexico's drug war, but they transformed it. They demonstrated that illicit organizations could replicate the architecture of the state, command structures, territorial control, disciplined enforcement, without legitimacy. They were trained to defend national security. Instead, they transferred that training into criminal enterprise. Once organized crime adopted state doctrine, the conflict ceased to be asymmetrical. It became a mirror. And when criminal organizations mirror the state structure without its constraints, containment becomes far more complex. The rise of Los Zetas was not simply expansion, it was evolution. And evolution, once introduced, cannot be reversed.